Hi, Mary. I'm Carol Swenson. I'm the former director of the museum, and I'm really glad to have all of you here today and to talk about the gardens.
How did the gardens get started?
Well, the development of the museum was in 2005, and it was kind of always in the background in the plans to do something like this as an extension of the museum. And in 2006, we began talking with the city, and then we gradually started doing our planning, and the site work for the gardens itself was completed in 2012. Prior to that, it was just an open area, open space with some large trees in it and very underutilized. And as we converted the maintenance building into the museum, this was a logical next step.
Why was it important to have the gardens, or why did you feel like you wanted to have the gardens here?
There are a couple of reasons related to that. One is whole area was conceived of as an improvement to the north end of Broadway Avenue. Before it was just kind of a old buildings and neglected area. But it also gives the museum a way to bring its mission outdoors and the celebration of lake life and lake experiences. And so as you go through the gardens, you'll see that there are areas for contemplation, just rest and relaxation, look at the water. And then there are other larger areas for gatherings, which is a lot of what happens at the lake. And there are many community gatherings here. It's a place to build community. And then also it's a place of discovery and learning and, about lakes and lake life and, what it all means.
Who did the design work of this beautiful place?
Well, the drivers of the development of the gardens were Bruce Olson and Bob Brickwig, who is an owner of Colorful Seasons Greenhouse, and Holly Walgren, who works at Colorful Seasons, was the person who laid out the basic design of the gardens and also helped lead and guide the selection of the plants and plantings that you see.
So, who picks the annuals that are put here now?
Well, it's become more of a group effort. Initially, Colorful Seasons helped us a lot, and volunteers and staff have been taking on that responsibility. And actually, what we're looking at is starting a master planning process for the gardens itself and thinking to the future and how can we make the gardens more sustainable, more reflective of native plants and plantings, and give our volunteers knees a little bit of a break and could start to think of perennials and so on that eventually will maintain themselves or require less work.
Well, that was my question, is who does all the planting and the maintenance?
We have a big planting day at the beginning of June. And that's when we put in the majority of the flowers into the beds. And we have 15 to 20 volunteers who come in and get their hands dirty and their trowels into the soil and begin to really plant the gardens. And then they continue to help us maintain the gardens over the summer. We have some staff that do things like mowing the grass, etc. But a lot of the annual beds, the weeding, that kind of thing is really done by a really dedicated core of volunteers.
Carol, when this was designed, was it made so that there's flowers or color throughout the season?
Yes, it was. And what we see is in the spring, we have a lot of the flowering shrubs and trees that bloom. And we have, some early plants like the Siberian iris that you see that brings out the purple. And we have peony bushes and all sorts of different types of perennials that bloom in the early spring. And then By early June, we have the annual beds planted, and that's, really gives everything a pop of color for when we have a lot of events going on in the gardens and we have a lot of visitors. And then into the fall, we have the Joe Pye weed begins to, bloom, and our sedum is blooming, and you can see the hydrangeas, and it's all quite, sequenced and lovely throughout the summer season.
What are some of the main features out here in the gardens?
Well, as people are leaving the North Gallery of the museum, where they see all of those beautiful mahogany boats, they first encounter our waterfall, which is, continues that theme of water into the gardens. And the sound and, just watching the water flow is really something that a lot of people love. It's a great place for photos, for family ops, and also for teaching. We do classes with boat building for kids, and they come down here and see if what they built floats. So it's, really an active place, and, the sound just kind of sets the tone for going into the gardens. And then, throughout the gardens, we have gazebos that are placed in critical positions. So you could have some with furniture inside of them, and we have a lot of people who just come in with their friend and sit there for an hour and have a conversation. The other gazebos we often use for either teaching or to support events that are happening in the gardens. And then one of the main features of the gardens is the Polig family stage, and that is where we have a lot of our concerts, wedding ceremonies happen there. And so there are a variety of different activities that are generated and take place around the different garden features.
I need to ask you about one feature that I saw. There's a sign that has different cities on there. How did that come to be, and how did you pick those cities?
Well, that's a very interesting story, and it kind of is the story of this museum. The pier and area around the sign is really a memorial for Fred Birch of Birch Travel. And donations from, in his memory, were used. The pier was initially built as part of the second phase of the garden, but it was expanded on. And that post with all of the different cities was donated by his wife, Terry Birch. And the cities are places that he loved to go and to travel. And if you look carefully, there are sayings on there about the importance of travel and how our lives are enriched by travel.
Do you have to pay in order to come in and use this area here?
No, it's open to the public from dawn to dusk. There is no charge. And so people can wander through, they make it a part of their lunchtime walk or their running that they're doing. We see a lot of runners taking a little break here and then continuing on the way. So there's no cost, and it's just a great place.